Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hi, folks. Oh, my goodness. I don't know what happened, but we're starting late. My apologies. So today's topic. Let me go back to the beginning. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network. My name is Zoe Muro, and I am honored to be your host for Choice, your creative superpower. During our time together each week, we'll be examining ways for you to wield your power, your superpower, for your greatest good. So if you're coming back, it's good to see you. And if it's your first time, welcome to the show. And I'm not usually flaky. I'm just having kind of a difficult day physically today. So my apologies. I am a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Oakland, California. I'm also a transformational coach. I assist people in living their lives as fully as possible. Today's episode, episode 8, is about exploring choice and relationships. And I suspect, based on my timing today, that I'm going to do this as a two-parter. We'll see how the day goes. So, after last week's show, talking about addiction, I was asked if I decided to go for an easier topic this week by choosing relationships. My response was, relationships? Easier? Really? I'd agree to a lot of different words like rewarding, exciting, engaging, but I don't know that I'd choose the word easier. Now, to be fair, it's not that relationships themselves are the problem. It's that the choices we make regarding relationships and how we make those choices carry a tremendous amount of weight in our life experience. We could start by asking, do we even have a choice about having a relationship? Now, unlike any of the other times I've asked similar questions, the answer here is no. You don't have a choice. I love it. Controversy. Yes, controversy. So we don't have a choice for the simple reason that everyone participates in many relationships. So let me pop the top off this particular can of worms. I'm going to give you a list of relationship types. It's an arbitrary list, granted. And there definitely can be an overlap from one type of relationship to another. But they kind of break down in this way. There are family relationships. I mean, look, we all started somewhere. Even if you were an orphan, you were adopted, you still started someplace. Friendships, acquaintances, romantic relationships, sexual relationships, work relationships, and then something called situational relationships. That last one, situational, is kind of a tricky one because its meaning has evolved over time. It used to simply mean recognizing that the only reason that a relationship can be said to exist is because you're in the same situation as another person. So maybe you're both riding the same bus. So for that period in time, you have a situational relationship where you both show up at the same store at the same time. But it also has come to indicate at times a relationship that deteriorates to a point where the only thing that's holding it together is a situation. So let's say roommates who don't get along and they do their best to ignore one another, but neither can afford to move out. So they relate only because of their situation. Excuse me. Considering how different each of these relationships types can be, it's easy to see that the choices we make regarding them could also differ significantly. You know, we make many conscious choices regarding our relationships. Simply choosing to be a part of a relationship is clearly a key step, although it's not always quite that simple. Case in point, you want to have a relationship with your neighbor that goes beyond the situational relationship that existed simply because you live next to them, which is, of course, the definition of being a neighbor. Well, if your neighbor has no interest in adding an additional relationship and expanding that, it's not going to happen. Likewise, you look at choosing to remain in a relationship or to leave a relationship. Well, that might not be your choice to make at all. The other person might choose that they're leaving. They might choose that you need to leave. Okay. So relationships have choices that go in multiple directions on a regular basis. But I want to back off from the complexity of those types of choices for a moment and talk about a number of other types of choices that affect relationships and how relationships affect those choices. So it goes back and forth. Now, some of us look at our familial relationships with great fondness. Others, not so much. So putting aside my relationship for the moment as a parent and looking at it just from the relationship as a child, I would say that most of my familial relationships were a source of tremendous pain, and I consciously chose to avoid most of my family members whenever possible. The big exceptions were my siblings. They were the light in the darkness for me, and I bless them. You know, we can't choose our family of origin, but many of us create a family of choice. Those people with whom our relationships are so strong, so enduring, so deep, that we feel as close a bond as possible. We think of them truly as being our family. Making the choice to avoid a toxic relationship is often an extremely important step to being able to choose healthy relationships. So, as I considered this aspect of choice, it occurred to me that there were a number of choices that were part of getting free from a toxic relationship. Perhaps the most important one being to choose that you yourself deserve to be free from toxicity, especially when you have the ability, the freedom to take that step. Another would be choosing to see the reality of one's relationship, to avoid excusing toxic behavior, to avoid blaming oneself for another's transgressions, to claim what is ours to work on, that's true, but recognizing where the boundaries, the limits lie. And then the choices that are involved in a good relationship, one which is nurturing and uplifting, then those can come into play. Toxic relationships take up room, they take up time, they take up energy, they take up our lives when they need not. Eliminating a toxic relationship is not a loss. It is an opening to the possibility of true goodness, of true gain, of true growth. Every personal relationship calls for us to choose. Whether it's for us to choose to be open, honest, supportive, engaging, all of these elements are things that we choose to enable a relationship to grow and to thrive. And if a relationship is a love relationship, whether we're talking a formal marriage or a union or an informal one, there are choices which each party must make. Not only that they must make consciously, but they must communicate to their partner. Assumptions and hidden agendas can seriously weaken and even destroy a love relationship. And to be fair, if a relationship is a purely physical, sexual relationship, well, each partner in that relationship must choose the same parameters, the same boundaries, or it too will fail. The choices associated with all different forms of relationships, such as acquaintances and friendships, they might tend to be less critical, I suppose you could say, than a love relationship. But they reflect on an individual's values and beliefs. For example, if I choose to see a new acquaintance as someone who is to be taken at face value, my experience of that person is going to be different than if I feel people need to prove themselves to me in some way first. Do I choose to engage with new acquaintances? Or do I keep my distance? Do I choose to get to understand more about them? Or do I choose to express more about myself? Do I choose to ascribe certain qualities to someone I've just met because of how they look, how they sound, how they came into my awareness? All of these are choices that we make, often without conscious choice, without conscious thought, sorry. Needless to say, the more conscious our choices are, the more that they can reflect our true values. Now, taking someone from an acquaintance to a friend status, well, that requires a conscious choice. Well, I suppose you can decide someone is your friend, even if you haven't spoken to them about that. If there's to be a true friendship, it needs to be a mutual choice, because the very definition of friendship is literally based on mutual affection. Which brings up the question of, how does one decide if a relationship you have with someone is indeed still a relationship, still a friendship? Is it based on the amount of time that you spend together, the things you talk about, the types of topics? Is it the feelings you get when you're with them or when you think of them? Is it the level of trust that you have in them and the level of trust they have in you? So many possible factors that you can choose from. In fact, these may very well be the exact same characteristics and factors that you use to decide if someone would be a good friend in the first place. Now, work relationships can be particularly tricky because when you think of work relationships, choice doesn't often come into your mind. It's like not necessarily uppermost. I mean, yes, you chose to take the job, but you probably didn't choose your coworkers, those folks who might be above you or aside you or below you in a hierarchy, whatever hierarchy exists. Nevertheless, there you are, in relationships with a number of people. And if there is indeed a hierarchy at your place of work, different types of relationships, even though they're all work relationships. Right now, my cat is having a relationship with my foot. Uh, so, so I'm sorry if you hear her. She has a lot to say. There are indeed many possible choices you can make, starting with how you present yourself. Do you choose to be seen as being outgoing or reserved? Do you speak about your personal life? Or do you choose to be a mystery? By the way, if you choose to not divulge much about yourself, have no fear. People will make up all of their own stories about you. Odds are work relationships cross over into other types of relationships, but it's based on the level of attachment that develops. All relationships are based on levels of attachment, ranging from the least attached, for example, a situation or an acquaintance, to most attached, say a love relationship. As the level of attachment increases, so does the importance of your choices. A very common common response rather to the question, what's the most important choice you'll make in your life? The answer is often the person I'll marry or the person I'll choose as my life partner. I'd argue that how you choose to relate to your spirituality, or even how you relate to yourself, that might take precedence. But I'll leave that to you to decide. Well, folks, we're almost out of time. And I do have more that I want to talk about. And as I said, I apologize for my technical difficulties this morning, and for my probably obvious physical difficulties this morning. But I'm losing my voice. So I am going to end our talk for today. But I'm going to pick this up again next week because there is more to be said about relationships. And I want to be able to give it its due. So if you will forgive me, I'm going to suggest that you spend some time today looking at the New Thought Media Network. There is so much going on here, so many things that you can enjoy. So today, for example, 12 noon Pacific time, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time. Check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with Practitioner and soon-to-be minister, my brilliant mentor, Gina Calvario-Krupka. At 1 p.m. Pacific time, that would be 2 p.m. Mountain time. There's the Vibrant Living Hour with Practitioner Ken Ludwig. So much going on. And without a doubt, folks, we could use your help so that we can indeed make this a truly global effort to help you to find your spiritual truth, to align with it, to make it the most that it can possibly be. So if you have the ability to go to ntmedia.org and see if you can make a donation for us, we would greatly appreciate that. So go to ntmedia.org and you'll find a donate button. We need your time, we need your talent, we need your treasure. Anything that you can do to help us would be greatly appreciated. And don't forget, if there is something on your mind or in your heart, by all means, send us a prayer request. We have prayer many times during the day, and we have a whole team of practitioners and ministers just waiting to pray for you. So until next week, when I hope to be in better voice, I encourage you to make good choices. So much love and many blessings. And I hope to see you soon. Namaste.
Choice. your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Muro.